put together a mindfulness meditation training, 9-week program, and I put my team through it, and they increased their sales by 160%. And all I taught them was to meditate. I didn't teach them scripts. We didn't get into objection handling. We didn't talk about lead sources. All we did was teach them to meditate for 10 minutes a day. And since then, so that's 2025 was when I rolled that out for the first time last year. I've had 300 or 400 people in various cohorts of it, and it's common. It's not everybody, not everyone doubles their salary, but more than not, see a massive increase in their performance. And I thought that's a wild thing.
Welcome to the Conscious Leadership Revolution podcast, where conscious leaders unite to unlock their highest potential so we can change the way the game is being played. Welcome to the Conscious Leadership Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Susan Hobson, joined by my co-host, Tracy Allen, who's back from her grand tours in Portugal. How was your trip? Plug us in.
Great. Very good. Very good. Productive. Yeah. Glad to be back, though.
I'm sure you're glad
to be home.
Glad to be back on the Eastern time zone. I know that's always part of the joy, is adapting to those European times, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's so good to have you back in the studio in time for our friend Aaron Hendon, who I have been so excited to introduce our audience to. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Aaron. Aaron is a mindfulness and a performance training specialist for professionals. He's a best-selling author and international speaker and coach. We're going to talk about his book in just a little bit. He's also a managing broker coming from the world of real estate. And that, like he says, pays the bills, but his passion really lies in this whole world of mindfulness, which is why we're so excited to introduce you to our crowd today. He says that he thinks that motivation and inspiration are fine, and we all certainly need training for the how-to of sales, but without designing new mindsets and the habits and practices to keep them alive, the rest of what we've trained in tends to fade away. So this is why we are so excited to have Aaron on the mic today. This is definitely going to help us with this conscious leadership revolution case that we're trying to make. Aaron, it's so great to have you on the mic, sir. Welcome.
Susan, thank you. Tracy, it's great to meet you. It's great to be with both of you. I'm really excited to contribute here. So thanks for the opportunity.
Oh, we're really excited to dig into your well because I know it runs deep. I think the place we want to start this flow off today is just to get you to plug into what conscious leadership means to you.
Well, I mean, we were talking about it just a little bit ago, like the Mindful CEO, which is my show, my direction, but it's that level of when we're responsible for the need to produce results, the need to perform, the need to have things move in a direction we're committed that they move, without being attached to how, being righteous, being narrow about the how, but more importantly, without selling our soul, without having the scoreboard be the thing that give us our experience of life. That conscious leadership really comes from, we're bigger than any particular result that gets produced. And any result that gets produced along the way is just the next result anyway. So there's losing ourselves in that is counterproductive, detrimental to our next to performing next. And we're always going to be demanded to perform next. There's no top to this mountain. So that's in that world. How's that?
I love that you're putting it into the metaphor of the mountain, because that's what Tracy and I talk about all the time on this show, right? Is like our observation is that it's kind of like climbing Mount Everest, right? In terms of this ascension journey that we go on when we become leaders, we don't realize it, but there's always another summit to climb, right? Or to conquer, so to speak, because the higher we climb, the more the pressure builds, the more capacity we need to develop. Especially when it comes to our nervous system, which is where I think we're both aligning in terms of the importance of practices like mindfulness. So tell our audience just a little bit of this backstory in terms of your ascension journey, your hero's journey, and what inspired you to bring mindfulness into the realm of real estate, which I know Tracy knows because she's in that same realm, can
Mhm.
be very high pressure and very high stakes.
Yeah, it's very high stakes. I mean, when you think about it, there's nothing more expensive that you own than your house. I mean, I'm in residential, but Tracy's in commercial. But even then, usually represents the largest single piece of a portfolio is the real estate. So it's definitely impactful realm to play in. My the real origin story for this, we can go all the way back. I grew up in New York, and I'm Jewish, so there's a certain particular cultural phenomenon that my people share of being worried about things, right? So the slogan of my family was "Things are never so bad they can't get worse," and that was the context for my life for many, many years. That kind of driven, I got to get things. And over the course of various jobs, I had a bakery. I baked bread for a while, and then I opened a bakery, and then I worked at Landmark, which is a transformational educational program, and did that. I still lead programs with Landmark. Actually, it's 30 years in leading transformational programs, um, which are fascinating. We get into, but anyway, I playing around with a lot of different things, and at some point, a few years back, maybe 3 years ago, yeah, 3 years ago, I was at a retreat with my wife and married 28 years. And the best thing about me is her. Like, if you hang out with me long enough, you'll get to meet her, and that's the best thing go ever. And my kids are old enough to take care of themselves, and they both speak to us, so that's a win. I had 5 deals in escrow at that moment in when I was at this retreat, which isn't good for me. That's a healthy career, healthy moment. And yet I was worried. I had this anxiety in my chest, like the Jaws music, like what this is not good. And it was so inconsistent with my circumstances. And I had taken
Mm.
the time to slow down. I was at a yoga retreat, and it occurred to me like this is crazy. And in a moment, I had this epiphany, like this moment of Satori, where I could see the game I was playing in life was to get enough, get enough, get enough. If I had enough, then I wouldn't be. If I had enough, then, oh, when I get enough, then I'll be. There's, again, mountain with no top, the no top to get enough, no, not enough to fill that hole. It's not really a mountain as much as it is a hole. And you can't get out of that from there. You're never going to get enough. And it was so obvious to me when I said it. I was like, that's crazy. And and then I started gave myself some space to think, okay, well, what else could I do? What other game could I play? If I wanted to play another game, what game could I play? And I thought, oh, I could play a game called, instead of letting my mind be a feral dog and squirrel and go after whatever it wants to go after, and ultimately just catastrophize and worry about things because that's where that dog runs. I thought, oh, what if I could control my attention? What if I had agency over my attention? And I realized that's what meditation does. I had been meditating on and off for since I was 20, so I'm familiar with the world. And I thought, oh, if I learned to meditate, I could control what my mind rests on. That would be cool. And I started to get trained in it. Got trained in gratitude meditations, which, if you want to get woo, we can go woo down that road. And and I thought, this is good. I should train my team in this. I have a team of real estate agents, and every coach in the world talks about mindset. You have a little winning mindset book behind you. Everyone talks about it, but I rarely see a recipe for it. I rarely see you hear a coach say, here's what you do to get a good, you need one, you should have one, do this, and you'll have, no one, rarely do I run into people that say the actions to take. And I thought, oh, I could train my team in this. Actually, and I got certified as a mindfulness instructor. Undertook particular training. And sometime during that training, my worry disappeared. And I can tell you, Susan, the moment it happened, I remember where I was, exactly. I was like this, like a boot had been off my chest, like someone, like I just was the weirdest thing. And I thought, okay, this is important work. I need to train people in this. And so I put together a mindfulness meditation training, 9-week program, and I put my team through it, and they increased their sales by 160%. And all I taught them was to meditate. I didn't teach them scripts. We didn't get into objection handling. We didn't talk about lead sources. All we did was teach them to meditate for 10 minutes a day. And since then, so that's 2025 was when I rolled that out for the first time last year. I've had 300 or 400 people in various cohorts of it, and it's common. It's not everybody, not everyone doubles their salary, but you know, more than not, see a massive increase in their performance. And I thought that's a wild thing that just being calm, centered, and grounded would give you more. I mean, when I say it out loud, it's sort of dumb, like, of course, you're more effective when you're calm, centered, and grounded. Who isn't? People talk about I work better under pressure, and that's just bullshit. No one works better when they're
No.
frantic, chaotic, and upset. No one's like, oh, that's my preferred reality. To give me that. No one thinks that. They just haven't done the work to train their brain to be calm, centered, and grounded. And when they are, oh, this thing happens. Oh, people trust them. In sales, people buy from people they know, like, and trust. Okay, well, all of a sudden, these agents are trustworthy because they're calm. They don't need the sale. They're not chasing anything. They're listening. They're available. They're present. They're calm. Oh, more people trusted them. Oh, okay. And then we can talk about the woo aspects of it too, but that's just neuroscience. All that other stuff is just, frankly, just straight up neuroscience. And yeah, and then I took the course, what I've been telling people in the course, like the manual I put together for the course, and I'm now putting it out as a book. It's called How to Live a Grateful Life in a Fucked Up World. And that's what we do. Is we train people to live a grateful life in this reality as it is, which is, I don't know, fucked up. Just is.
Challenging, to say the
It's
least.
challenging. There we go. There's the PC term. It's challenging. Yes, it is. So anyway, that's the origin of that. That's how I got here.
Tracy, you have anything?
No, no,
Okay.
I was waiting for you to ask.
I want to just stick a pin in this whole piece. I think you mentioned it 2 times or 3 times in terms of if you want to go woo. It doesn't sound very woo to me when you're talking about doubling someone's salary, especially given the context of the world right now,
Yeah,
the cost of living in cities like New York or Toronto or
yeah,
Ottawa, and then just in terms of like the bare obvious, maybe common sense level of like people do business with
yeah,
those that they know, like, and trust, right? So let's demystify this so that
yeah,
people don't think it is actually woo-woo, because I think
yeah.
that's the
This is
whole
not.
point of this podcast,
Yeah,
right?
100%. Yeah, 100%. Not that's not nothing I said is woo-woo. And really, you're going to talk about conscious anything. You're engaging with people who understand that neuroscience is finally catching up to what's been considered woo. So that's really all that's happening, is that you're really getting that, the quantum physics and on every level, the ancient practices were pointing in a direction that we can now measure. So the measurables of this are, in the last 70 years, there are thousands of case studies from MIT and Harvard and Stanford and Mayo Clinic about the difference mindfulness makes and meditation makes on one's approach to life. So this is the very grounded, demystified version of it that anyone can get, because it doesn't necessarily look to people like, well, teach people to meditate, double your sales. So there's a couple of problems there. One is people don't understand what meditation is, and which we can get to. But if you got what meditation was, it would be this. The only thing that produces results is action. And no one's arguing with that, right? No, only thing produces results is action. No one meditates and have gold fall out of the sky. That's not happened yet. And if you want new results, you got to take new actions. No one argues with that. That's pretty flat-footed science right there, right? Same actions produce the same results. Same actions expecting new results is crazy. So new actions need new results. And then you only act on things the way you see them. So if Roger Federer serves me a ball, that looks like a bullet and I duck. Because Roger Federer serving me a ball makes it look to me like that is dangerous. Roger Federer, same serve to Rafael Nadal, and he returns it because Roger Federer is an old man and he can definitely return that ball. You only act on things the way they seem to you. So if you want to take new actions, you have to see new things. or see things newly. Either way, any way you want to play that. If you're going to produce new results, you have to see things in a new way. And that's what being mindful is. You're seeing things newly. You're seeing really beginner's mind. Zen 101 is beginner's mind, approaching it like you don't know the answer. Like, what's here? Ellen Langer is a godmother of mindfulness and has this practice to train mindfulness where she says, in any situation, find three new things to look at. You're just training your brain to see things newly, and that will give you new actions to take. And those new actions will produce new results. It's a scientific, that's the fundamental basis of this whole thing. It's like, oh, I'm just going to see things newly. I'm going to see things not through my filter of how I already know that they are. And the brain's wired in a particular way. Again, science, no basic, we've gotten down to the point where we're clear that the default mode network for a human being is negativity bias. It's survival bias. It's designed to avoid threats. And it does a great job. It's kept you alive. You're listening to this podcast. You have survived. Congratulations. Your brain is working perfectly well. That's the job. It's not designed to have you thrive. That's not how it's wired. It can be trained to have you thrive, but it won't by default. The default mode network for a normally operating human being is to look for patterns of threat and avoid them. Well,
Maybe
that's what,
Aaron, let's talk about a little bit more about the meditation because I think
sure.
that's one of the things that I get asked a lot of times is like, well, why? Like, what does it do? And I think when
Exactly.
people just kind of go, well, it's like, it is woo woo. Some people say, oh, really? Like you meditate? Like, why the hell do you meditate? Like, what do you get from that? And it's hard to explain it, right, in
It's
words. But
super easy to explain it. This is great, Tracy. This
well,
is
yeah,
exact.
like, but I think we want to get
Here's how you
our
explain it. Sure.
people to like understand the benefits of it and how
Yeah,
easy it could help or how well it could help them, right?
no problem. Super easy. So this is just the most basic kind of question. Do you have anything, is it at all vaguely, even remotely woo-woo to suggest that your diet and your exercise affects the way your body looks or feels? Is there anything woo-woo
Agree.
about that?
Nope. Hard
Nope.
No,
science.
no one argues. No one's like, well,
Yeah.
I don't know about this. I eat ice cream all the time, and I don't think it's connected to my gaining weight. I think, no, it's not. Everyone knows the way you eat and the way you move your body affects your physiology. Good. Meditation affects your brain in the exact same way. Exact. fMRI studies show undoubtedly that when you meditate, and I mean 10 minutes a day, I don't mean go to a mountaintop, and we can get into all the misconceptions about meditation, but I mean you sit and you meditate for 10 minutes a day, you actively decrease the neuronal activity in your amygdala, your fight, flight, or freeze. You're slowing that, you're lowering that reactivity, and you're increasing the neuronal activity in your prefrontal cortex. You're increasing the mass of your reasoning brain, the activity in your reasoning brain, and you're decreasing your reactivity. You're becoming more responsive and less reactive. And that lasts beyond the time you sit. You're changing your brain the way lifting weights changes your muscles. It's exactly the same thing. It's not even an analogy. It's not like, well, it's not a metaphor. It's
Mhm.
completely analogous to that. You're actively physically changing your brain by meditating. Could
Bingo.
not be any less woo woo than, oh,
Yeah.
lifting weights and I get stronger. It's magic. It's not magic. You're lifting weights. That's how that works.
Yeah,
And
That's
that's the whole thing.
let's
Is that,
build on
Tracy, is that a
that.
simple way to do it? Say it. Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. Clear.
Let's build on that because I think this is our thesis, right, in terms of why we believe this is becoming quickly every single day in a more accelerated way than yesterday, it feels like. Yeah, the need for us leaders to get to this helm consciously
Yes.
for the purposes of adaptation and innovation and problem solving, which is why we believe that this is ever increasing as a demand in terms of a leader's development, right? Because of
Yes.
what you just said. Our
Yes.
perception is our reality. That's where the root cause analysis leads us and why we talk about mindset so much in the context
Yes.
of behavior. It's the origin story of how we make choices, right? Is how we see the world. And there's a much different world through the lens of the amygdala versus the prefrontal cortex, you know?
100%. That's right.
Yeah. And so that's why I'm curious to just, hear a little bit about how you see all of this acceleration in terms of the disruption of AI, in terms of the need for leaders to really figure out how they can make space in their day to slow down a little tiny bit, which I know for high
Mhm.
achievers living in scarcity, which you were living in at the start of your story there,
Totally.
are deathly afraid of
Yes.
because their
Well,
amygdala sees it as a threat.
yes. Well, there's a couple of things in there that they're afraid of. Okay. So, first of all, it's very hard. So, I live like you get to keep whatever limitation you argue for. That's sort of like a mantra. Like, if you want to argue for you don't have 10 minutes to meditate, then you get to live that life. Congratulations, you win.
Hmm. Hmm.
Nothing I'm going to do about it. I guarantee you, you're spending 10 minutes scrolling, but that's not for me to say. That's for you to say. And if you want to live like you don't have time for this, congratulations, you won that life. Good, good for you. So there's that. People have time for this. It's literally 10 minutes. It's literally not even something that I want to argue about. Um, the other thing that does, in fact, keep people away, even after that, is they're afraid that if they lost their edge, they lost their anxiety, they'd have no motivation to perform the way they have.
That's real.
They're afraid they're going to lose some edge in their performance. Their
Hmm.
performance has been given. And in the beginning, when they created whatever they created, their business or their life, the grind was necessary. You put 10 in and you got one out, and it was necessary to move in that. It's just you've hit a ceiling for what you can do with that. And if you're going to continue, right, on that path forever, then you're going to deal with, I always have to be dissatisfied to motivate myself. Okay, well, again, if that's the life you have, then at the end of your life, you are going to lie on your deathbed and be delighted how dissatisfied you've been because of how much you accomplished. But that's not the way that deathbed works. Very few people get out of a life, what it was near-death experiences or on their deathbed, and they think, I can't believe I watched all my kids' soccer games. That was just a mistake. No one thinks that. No one's like, oh, I can't believe we didn't close that merger. That's not a deathbed thought. So you got to find a way. If you're interested in this, then you need to find a way to both be satisfied and fulfilled in the moment and operate to the next level. The way we distinguish that, way I distinguish that, or the way I work that out is there's a way of operating that's given by in order to. I will do this in order to that. When, which is the enough, which is if that, when, then. Like, okay, when I get that, then I'll be happy. I'll be happy. I'll do this now in order to be happy later, except that later never comes because when later's there, it's now. And in now, I'm operating in order to. So it just feeds that bucket. It's not going to change. There is, however, a way of operating from devotion. This strikes me as a particularly conscious leadership conversation. I
Hmm.
operate from devotion. I operate from this is the passion of my life. This is my purpose-driven mission to steal from your marquee. This is who I am. I am driven by the fact that I'm completely satisfied with who I am and the mission I'm fulfilling. And while it is not fulfilled, I celebrate every step I take in that direction. There are no wrong steps in that direction. There's just the next step in that direction. And I would never stop taking steps in that direction. And there's very few people I would suggest that have a purpose-driven mission. And you and I haven't worked at it. I'm literally just stealing it because it's on your marquee. But find it hard to imagine. And no one I've worked with has a purpose-driven mission that includes, and I'm going to miss all my kids' soccer games, and I'm going to neglect my family to the point where I'm going to need a crisis to recognize how much I've taken for granted. No one's creating that as part of their mission. So you can operate and produce, and you will produce more results when you're happy. Science, clearly, you are more effective when you're happy. It's not a question. Nothing woo about that. Happy people outperforms stressed people. They're just they do. So you got to but that's a leap one needs to make for oneself. And to get to the other side, you got to let go of the shore. And our shore for the type A driven CEO type has been, I'm going to get it done myself at any cost. And you've got to let go of that if you're going to get to the other side. And that happens if you have a near-death experience. People have heart attacks and they do that. They changes their whole life, but it'd be nice to not need to almost die to get that. What are
Yeah.
your
So do you think that that's the assignment in terms of AI? Like, I'm just curious in terms of your predictions with this, right?
with
Because I think
AI?
it's pushing us into scarcity even more at the
Um,
onset, is my observation. But it obviously is really going to challenge our ability to stay in scarcity as human doings, not human beings, don't you think?
uh, okay, so I haven't put it's so I haven't put a ton of rational thought on thinking it through. So I don't know that I'm the best person to answer that. I do tend to avoid future-based prediction, sorry, that's redundant, predicting things because there's
Mhm.
no market mechanism to punish anyone who has the wrong prediction. And the way predictions work. I was once, so predictions are big in real estate, right? Everyone wants to know what their house is going to be worth next year. No, everyone's like, how's the market doing? Where's it going? And one day I was après ski. This is very fancy. I was après ski in a hot tub. Uh, I don't remember where, somewhere, Colorado probably. And I had a beer, sit in the hot tub. We were just drinking with the other guys. And this guy sits next to me. We're just chatting. And it turns out he is an economist at the Fed. Economist at the Fed. I'm like, oh my
In the
God,
hot tub.
you are my holy grail, my brother. This is like, you're human. This is great. And we just got to talking. And he said, the way you keep your job as an economist at the Fed is you make a lot of predictions and you change them often. And that's it. You have to just make enough predictions that some of them come out right. And that's the nature of predictions because the future is, we couldn't even talk about AI 2 years ago. We, and AI can do things now that weren't even dreamable 6 months ago. So I have no idea. Look, I think inside the current context of the way people operate, it's going to be scary because everything shows up like a threat. And I don't think that has anything to do with AI any more than it does with who's president or with the way that thing. We just perceive things as a threat unless we slow down and get, okay, here's a level of that prediction, Susan, that might be useful. And I don't know, but certainly for the people listening, the if you slow down enough to just get the this is what my feet feel like on the floor kind of presence. This is it. I'm present now in the midst of any of the turmoil, and there is really nothing but you know every moment seems to have said hold my beer to the previous moment about how fucked up things get. Like every moment, it's just there's no news cycle anymore. It's just if you can just get yourself present for a moment, you're okay. You're okay. Right now, you're okay. With this breath, I'm okay. And if you really stopped and you really considered that okayness, the vast, vast, vast majority of your life, you've been okay. There's almost no reason to think you're not going to be okay in the next moment. And the vast majority of the time, think everything has been different. So things are going to be different. That's pretty predictable. And you're going to be okay. That's pretty predictable. And you would definitely make better decisions about the future if who you were okay in the present and not operating from some made up threat that you were sure was the real way it's going to be. It's really going to be. No, we don't know what it's going to be. We just don't know. And it is not knowable. And I don't think it's particularly useful to pretend I'm going to know it. I'm going to deal with, it's what I tell people when they want to know what their house is worth. I don't know because I don't know what someone's going to offer for you next year. I don't know what someone's going to offer this weekend when we go live. I, I know what people around you have offered in the past for houses like this, so we should start there. But we're going to need to dance. I listed a house last month, and the next day we're bombing Iran. It changed the whole thing. I don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen, but we can, in fact, train our brain to be okay with whatever comes up next, because something's coming up next, and we don't know what it is. So that's a
And that's
way
a
of avoiding your
mark.
question.
Well, no, I just think it's what I'm talking about too, right? It's like there's a market difference in terms of the decisions that are going to be governed by a brain that is okay,
Yeah.
aka safe,
Yep.
versus one that is not.
That's right. 100%.
And
Whether it's AI or the president or the price of oil or what's going to happen with food or the global warming or any of the other things that you can spin out on, and there are apparently, as big as I think that list is, apparently they add a new one every day. So good for the powers that be, for getting creative with the ways things can get weird. Uh, I just know that if I'm grounded, I'm going to have a better chance of dealing with it than if I'm frantic,
Mhm.
ungrounded.
Yeah. And being grounded and the value of meditation is that, right? In terms of getting
Yes.
back to that parasympathetic aspect of our nervous system that knows we're safe and then has permission to just go play and
That's right.
co-create whatever the future is going to be, which, yeah, there's some aspects of that we can't control, but how we show up and orient towards what's coming our way in terms of those energies
Yes.
is. And that's
Totally.
the game changing difference, I feel like, for a leader who's meditating versus a leader who is not.
That's right. I think it's a really great way to say that. You have the thing you have control over is your attention. You can develop agency of attention. You can control what you have your attention on. Or you don't, and then you got to go wherever that dog runs. And then that's, you know, and it's always going to it's pretty much going to run to some tragic outcome. I mean, catastrophizing is, I don't know if that's my thing. I'm a professional catastrophizer. I could definitely come up with the scenario where it's not going to work out better than you. So, and I'm very competitive about it.
I think it's interesting, but it's like there's the piece of like being grounded and slowing down and taking inventory of that and then having that ripple through the rest of the day. But I also think that anyway, when I meditate, there's things that come to me that wouldn't normally come
Yes.
to me when I'm busy. And I think there's a huge amount of benefit of the downloads that you can get that then unlock kind of other ideas that you continue to build on. And I think we didn't really talk about the benefit of that, but for me, there's yes, the calmness, which I get, but then there's also messages, downloads, ideas that come to me, and then I can build on those. And then they come back for me sometimes again to tell me something else. And it's like, oh my God, yeah, click, 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 something else. And it's like, that I think is probably one of the most powerful pieces of meditation for me
100%.
anyway. Besides
Tracy, that's
getting my state in check, but like
yes.
ideas, the creativity, the innovation that comes with that, I think is what, is a real kind of slam dunk when you can get into that kind of state and practice it.
I can't agree with you more. I mean, that's the seeing new things.
Yeah.
You now see things you couldn't see before to act on. That's exactly what I mean by that. You
Yeah.
get, and now we say we get downloads and that's a woo-woo triggering kind of phenomenon, like I'm getting, but that's the way it works. You
Mhm.
have access to all the intelligence in the
Mm-hmm.
world, and you are just filtering out some of it at all times because you can't take in every bit of information. So you quiet down the noisy part of your brain, the freaking out, sort of threatening part of your brain, and the other part of your brain turns up the volume. Your intuition turns up. Your sense, you already know this physically. You have this sensation. You've walked into a room and thought, oh, this is weird in here. Well, what is that?
Mm-hmm.
That's you. Your body is tuned into something your brain can't, your eyes don't see it. Doesn't look any different, doesn't sound any different, but you know damn well this is weird.
Hmm.
because but you now have the opportunity to control that, to like turn the knob. I'm going to turn down the noise and turn up my turn up the sensations. And, where, if this metaphor works for people, great. If it doesn't, don't use it. But prayer is when you speak to God, and meditation is when you listen. And that's the practice. That's what you're describing. And that's exactly one of the benefits. That's what I mean by you will see new things to act on.
Hmm.
So now you have new actions. Now you produce new results. Look at
Hmm.
that. Because you shut up for 10 minutes.
And some might say that it helps you get in tune with that intuition, which is the smartest part of you. Your
100%.
fear tries to convince you that it knows it all with the what ifs, what ifs, what ifs, what ifs. But what we're suggesting is true is that it's a negative cognitive bias, right? Like
Yes.
it's just
Yes.
it's constantly calibrating and bringing into your awareness the dangers and the threats, not the opportunities.
That's right.
And that's the difference, right? When your
100%.
intuition is at the helm, not your fear. Because then the what ifs, what ifs, what ifs of that catastrophic part, right, start to become the what ifs, what ifs, what ifs.
Exactly. Oh, that's a really great way to say it, Susan. I'm stealing that. That's great.
It's like scarcity to abundance, and that to me is such a marked difference for any high performer in any context of high performance. Like I always talk about me on the ice. If I was playing in the what ifs, what ifs, what ifs, I was on the ice. I was behind the play, and then I was on the bench. But the key for me was when I learned to drop down in my skates and embody my presence, so that I could just let my intuition take the wheel. And then I saw all the opportunities to make plays, et cetera. And so
That, you know,
I want to
that's
take
a,
this one step further because
yeah.
you mentioned off the draw the word soul in the context of what conscious leadership means to you. And I'm curious, what does that mean to you in this context of fear versus intuition?
Well, one of my favorite quotes is C.S. Lewis that says, "You don't have a soul. You have a body. You are a soul." And I think that's an important thing to remember, is that we are, I mean, no one really thinks they are their body, I mean, we live like we are, but if you really stopped anyone, you're like, we cut you open, we wouldn't find Tracy in there. We'd find the same stuff we find in Susan, but somewhere there's a difference between Tracy and Susan. And it's that somewhere that is the way the mystics would talk about it is, you are an expression of life, the way an apple is the expression of an apple tree. You are just lifing, and it's peopling, and life also trees, and it apples, and it fishes, and it birds, and it dogs, and it peoples. It's just various expressions of life force, not the same life force, but this, in one way, the same life force. Like you had, so it's not soul so much in the theological, although C.S. Lewis meant it that way, but it's not so much soul in the particular theological representation. Like, okay, it's a Christian soul or a Jewish soul or something like that. For me, it's more like, no, you are the expression of life force made manifest, and you can tap back into that expression. And this is the download part, and get the information that your expression needed at this moment to take whatever next step was there. I don't know, but that realm of beingness where we're connected in a way that quantum physics is just catching up to, but we are an expression of the same soul. We're like the arm and the finger, or the arm and a foot of the same body. We're not the same thing. We don't have the same job. We don't have the same place, but we certainly belong together. So it's long. I don't know. That's how I think about all that.
Well, I love that you're using the word expression in that context, again, relating it to conscious leadership, right? Which I do think is why we're talking about consciousness and the theme or in the realm of leadership so much, right? Is because I think that's what we came here to do as
Yes.
souls, is to express through the human being that we are, you know? And I think that that is part of the assignment in terms of any disruption or any need, right? To learn how to meditate or get mindful, especially in high pressure, high stakes environments, right? Is because I think it's challenging us to come back to our creative capacity.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that that's such a tremendous opportunity for the deficit of human potential on this planet because of how long we've been leading from our amygdalas, right?
Yes.
In scarcity. I mean, imagine the what ifs in terms of the possibilities then.
Yeah. Well, and the people that have popped out, from time to time stand out as people that have popped out and or like, well, there's a unique, the Gandhis or the MLK Juniors or the Nelson Mandelas or the people that pop out like, oh, look at that. And then artistically, there are people that pop out like, oh, look at that. There's an expression we haven't seen before. They do something radically different, random version, but the Ramones, like what, where, like, whoa, right? Like that, like there's just expressions that hit at the right time, at the right conversation. And so, yeah, love it.
That's why I'm so inspired by you teaching your firm of real estate brokers to meditate. I always say our people look to us to know how to feel, right? So for you to take that lead and actually be the model that carries that weight of inspiration for a bunch of sales folks, which is very high pressure, high stakes, like we started this episode talking about. What a tremendous opportunity to unleash their creative expressions in the
100%.
world, you know? So I know all of our leaders listening are going to gain so much inspiration from this interview. Yeah, I just want you to leave our folks with a little bit of practical advice because, as you said at the top, these are practices. The results changing is linked to the practice
Mm,
changing, right? And
yes.
I totally back Tracy up in terms of the resistance that we see from leaders with, yes, even a 10-minute suggestion in terms of a mindfulness practice is
Right.
real, right?
Yeah.
Because they're in their amygdalas. So what is a really simple, practice that you could suggest to our listeners just to get them maybe started in the action part so that they can experience some of this shift in terms of their perception of reality?
Well, two things, and they're connected. But the first one would be find a teacher and learn to meditate. Don't learn from an app or don't learn from YouTube. Don't let it's problematic to teach yourself to meditate. It's a little bit like trying to see the back of your own head. It's not really useful, not really going to get there. And mostly why is because you're going to judge yourself, and we're all wildly hard on ourselves. And so I'm going to say what to do, and then I'll give you a metaphor for how to hold it. But it's be kind to yourself. The number one thing. So it could look a lot of different ways. It could look like I'm going to take a break and take 10 minutes, just take a walk. I'm going to, if I have a commitment to meditate every day and I don't meditate, I'm not going to engage in that. I fuck that up. I'm going to be kind to myself. I'm going to be gentle. The imagery I'd like you to use for what it looks like to be kind to yourself is when you learned how to walk or when you taught someone else how to walk. Remember do you ever teach anyone, you ever teach a human being how
We
to walk?
we're mothers, so yes,
Okay.
we definitely have been there.
Okay, good. So anytime you taught someone to walk, what happened was they stood up on their chubby little legs and they fell and you cheered. You were so happy. You were authentically delighted. And if they fell forward, you were like, hey, get in here. He's walking. I mean, it was like every attempt at it was a victory. It was delightful. You were nothing but there was no correction. There was no constructive criticism. There was no anything but just delight in the attempt. And every attempt was met like that. And we don't wind up with people who give up on walking. We don't have parents that are like, forget it, you'll never be a walker. And we don't have kids who are like, no, not walking works for me. That never happens because it's every bit of it is a delight. And I've yet to meet the adult that has 1/100th of that grace for themselves when learning anything. Everything is worth celebrating every day. Every time you attempt something, that's a celebration. Did you fall? Great. You fell. Well, look at you. You learned how to walk that way. And I don't see any reason to not learn everything that way. There's no advantage to being hard on yourselves. There's no downside to being kind to yourself for sure. And that's the image. So every time you do something, find the thing to celebrate about it, even if it's just that you took the step, you stood up, you tried to stand up, you thought about it. When I teach mindfulness for people and we talk about meditation, and if you don't meditate every day, the hardest thing there is to do is to forgive yourself for not meditating. Because even thinking about meditating has a little bit of mindfulness in it. Even if you had the thought I should meditate and I didn't, even that, no shame, all celebration. That's the practice.
I love it. One keeps us in the prefrontal region and one reduces us back to the amygdala.
100%.
So that's amazing coaching. Do you want to tell our folks a little bit about this book that you have launching that I received my pre-order special on the other
Yes.
day?
It's called How to Live a Grateful Life in a Fucked Up World. And it
Mm-hmm.
is a 9-week practice for training your brain for presence, peace, and clarity, or clarity, peace, and presence. And the fundamental assertion of the book is that until you have a powerful way to hold your grief, your upset, your resignation, your disappointment, your fear, unless you have a powerful way to hold that, you can't really experience gratitude. That gratitude journaling isn't going to get you there. It's just putting icing on dog shit and pretending it tastes like cake. How you doing? Fine. No, you're not fine. Things are fucked up. You got to find a way to hold all that and experience gratitude. And you can. The sort of underpinning quote that ties it together is from Francis Weller, where he says, it's the work of the mature adult to hold grief in one hand and gratitude in the other, and to be stretched large by them. The degree to which I can feel grief is the degree to which I can experience gratitude. That we're no longer hiding our grief or our upset under toxic positivity, which is why I called it How to Live a Grateful Life in a Fucked Up World. Because if you're not going to admit it's a fucked up world, we don't have anything to talk about. I'm not working with people who are like, no, it's all good. No, it's not. And it's never going to be. And it never has been. And yet, it's okay. You have plenty to be grateful for. You don't have to wait for all that to disappear. So that's the practice. That's what the practices lead to.
Yeah, that's a wonderful expansion of our consciousness is to integrate the yin and the yang,
Yes.
right?
Yes,
And
totally.
yeah, to be able to hold all of it. This really resonates with me right now as I'm holding both with everything I have and trying my best to, yeah, just hold that space for both to coexist. And there is an expansion of possibility in that integration I have found that makes
100%.
life more profound,
The
if that
further
makes
you can
sense.
hold them, the more you be stretched large by them. Hold grief in one hand, gratitude in the other, and to be stretched large by them. That's the game. It's like how big can I, how much can I hold?
Mhm. Yeah, and that's a heart-centric practice that builds
Very much so.
capacity in your nervous system and in your cognitive resources and all of that just makes you more armed and dangerous in terms of navigating disruption of any kind, right? Tracy, do you have any final questions or words for our folks today? Questions for our guests or words for our folks?
No, I think hopefully everybody will go and try out some of Aaron's tips around meditation. I think it's super helpful. We talk about it a lot, but I know it can be challenging for some people to really sit with themselves, right? And listen. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge, or to be judged or to judge themselves even for that. So I encourage everybody to take a few moments and listen to this podcast and then maybe reach out and get that book and give that a try. Even just like you said, 10 minutes. That's all it
10 minutes.
takes. So
Yep.
thank you, Aaron, for sharing that. It was great.
Tracy, my pleasure. It's great to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
I know all of our audience is going to be looking to find you. So we're going to leave all the places you can connect with Aaron on the sidelines. He's on Instagram, he's on LinkedIn, he's on Facebook, he's on YouTube. He even has a Substack that we're going to leave a link
Great.
for. And yeah, how to practice gratitude in a fucked up world. Are we able to get a link to that, or when does that become available for our
Right
folks?
now, I was shooting for this quarter, but it's looking more like July at this point. So we shall see. But they can aaronhendon.com. It'll all be there as I know it. So there you go.
Okay,
I'm
awesome.
wrestling with book covers now. I'm trying to get just the right book cover.
Well, we can hardly wait to see where you land. This has been so much fun as I knew it would be. Thank you, Aaron, for coming in to co-create with Tracy and I. I definitely think we've made the case in terms of making 10 minutes for meditation and
Yes,
mindfulness. And I just know, yeah, it's why we're so passionate about bringing these conscious leadership practices to our folks, is because it doesn't take long, despite what your amygdala is trying to convince you of.
that's right.
And the investment that we're talking about today, we talked about it in all kinds of different ways in terms of the ROI that you receive when you
It's
step
ridiculous.
into these conscious leadership practices. There's a reason why these three serious business folks are all preaching about these things, you know? So, very much excited to hear your feedback. Please don't forget to hit like and subscribe on your way out the locker room door. And for all other inquiries in terms of some of the co-creative things we're concocting over at elitehighperformance.com. You can check all of that over at our website too. That's it. That's all. We'll see you all next week.